Welcome to WEHM All Access, the podcast where we bring you in-depth conversations with the people shaping life right here on Eastern Long Island. Now, every episode, we're going to dive into the stories, the music, and the voices that define our community, from local leaders to the musicians you know and love. And throughout the summer, we're catching up with many of the performers taking the stage at the Great South Bay Music Festival, getting the inside scoop on their music, their journey, and what they're bringing to Patchogue this year. Well, on this episode of EHM All Access, we're catching up with one of the Great South Bay Music Festival's true staples, Miles to Dayton. Dave March joins us to talk about the band's roots, their unmistakable family harmonies, how the festival has grown over the years, and the brand new music they're getting ready to release. It's a look at Long Island's music community through the eyes of a band that's really helped shape it over the years. It's Dave March from Miles to Dayton on EHM All Access. It's EHM All Access for the Great South Bay Music Festival. I learned all about the different performers at this year's festival, happening, of course, July 23rd through the 26th at Shorefront Park in Patchogue. It's coming up on the Sunday night at the Jambalaya stage at 6:30. It is a Great South Bay Music Festival veterans Miles to Dayton, and joining me from the band is Dave March. Dave, what's going on? How are you?
How's it going, Harry? It's good to see you again.
Thank you for doing this and sitting down. And you guys, for me, are kind of synonymous with the Great South Bay Music Festival. How many years have you done this festival?
I think we maybe missed 1 year, maybe 1 year, and we still ended up playing it anyway. We ended up backing up Robert Brewery.
Oh wow, that's kind of funny how that works. And you are veterans of it. You're performing this year at the Great South Bay Music Festival. And for people that don't know, you guys have deep Long Island roots. How did the band originally come together?
Well, my sister Krista and John Prattis went to high school together. And Krista always kind of had a crush on John when we were in high school. John was a musician in his own right, and we were kind of doing our own musical thing at the same time. Years later, John and Krista kind of reunited, and John said, "I want to write music with you." And she said, "Okay, well, I come with a brother." So, we started writing some music together, and we would get together on Sunday nights and we would work on some songs together. And John is kind of a machine. He writes pretty quickly. So, he had a few songs that he had already written, and I had a few songs, but Johnny can definitely turn some songs around pretty quickly. So we were writing some songs together and putting the pieces together. A lot of it was performed at like open mic nights. I hosted a couple of open mic nights back then, so we would try songs out at the open mic nights. And as we built up more of a repertoire, we were like, okay, I think we have a band. So we started putting the rest of the pieces in place, and then we went and started recording demos, and eventually what would become A Long Way Back, which was our first album.
What kind of influenced the sound of the earlier versions of Miles to Dayton? What were you kind of looking to do initially?
At that time, we were coming from a lot of different perspectives. John obviously was very classically influenced. I think a lot of the music that he was listening to, he was listening to a lot of different genres of music. We both were listening to a lot of even like indie rock music, like emo music even. I was listening to a band called the Get Up Kids, and ironically, Johnny was listening to the same band, or Jimmy Eat World. We were listening to some bands like that, and we were listening to jazz, and then John would come from a jazz perspective. There was a great artist named Gabe Dixon, who had a band called the Gabe Dixon Trio, and John introduced us to them. But we were constantly kind of shuffling different styles of music to each other. And it's always been about musical conversation. It's like, hey, I love this band, you should listen to this. And like at that time, it's over 20 years at this point, but at that time we were heavily into Damien Rice and Ray LaMontagne. They were like they kind of like really kind of kickstarted a bit of a style. When I was a kid, I was heavily into like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. That was like my thing. So when we got together and started playing, like the harmony structure was always something that we wanted to do. Like it always had to be based around having like 3-part to 4-part harmony. And at this point, it's like 5-part harmony. So we're we're still kind of going by a few of the same threads
Yeah.
that we had when we started.
How long did it take to kind of evolve the sound, or at least have you be confident in the direction you were going in as for the sound for the band?
I think that we all bring the elements. John kind of, creates the sauce, and we put the spices into it. So, um, John always comes to the table with the structure, and then we build off of what he builds. And I think that the different influences that we bring to the table is what makes it unique in its own style. But it usually starts with John a lot of the time. So it definitely has, it begins there, and the kind of stamp itself begins with John's style, and then our styles influence it more. And it may not always be what's in his head. Like I might not play a bass line the way that he had it in his head, but it ends up, he's always been very generous in being like, hey man, I like what you did there. It wasn't what I thought you were going to do, but let's just go with it.
How did you land on the name? And then because I'd imagine Miles to Dayton, where did that come from? I've heard this story, but I just want to make sure you tell it because it's interesting.
Okay, so on the first album, there's a song called Dayton on A Long Way Back. And when we were first playing coffee shops, John would come and play the open mic nights when he got back from school. He was away at school, and he was living in Chicago for a while.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. Wow.
He would he probably had like 2 or 3 songs that he would play that weren't Miles to Dayton songs yet. But one of those songs was a song called Dayton, which he wrote for his grandfather, Dayton Prentice. And when we were trying to come up with different names, it's always, it's like, okay, write down a bunch of stuff on a piece of paper and whatever works. I had a Miles Davis shirt at the time that I used to wear all the time to gig and stuff, and people were like, you should call the band Miles. I'm like, no, it's going to be too confusing. And then we came up, and then I wanted to name the band Dayton, and John's like, I don't know, I feel like that might be a little too personal. And then one day I was just like writing stuff down on a piece of paper, and it ended up, I liked different bands with like 3 name, like 3 word names. And like, I think at the time there were all sorts of different bands at that time. Like Jimmy Eat World has 3, 3 word, it's a 3-word name. So we were like, oh, that's kind of a cool thing. So I came up with Miles to Dayton, and then John kind of came up with the idea that Miles to Dayton is the miles that you travel in life until you see that person that you looked up to or respected again. So the miles from beginning, from life to death, from birth to death. Ooh, goodness.
Very, very nice. It's an interesting story, and you guys have been together for over 20 years now. Did you imagine that when you first started? Like, because it is a family band, so you
Sure.
know that people, but it's amazing how long the project has endured.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have our moments. I mean, there's been a lot of life happening in between, in that 20 years. John and Krista alone, 4 kids. So, the landscape has changed a bit. But we love making music together still. It's always been a thing. And now even the kids are starting to become a part of what we do.
That's nice.
Like John and Krista's oldest will get up on stage with us, and sing Therapy off of our first album. And it's so much fun. Like, it's like, they know everything word for word because they were born into it. So it's like, whenever they get the chance to sing with us, it's cool to be able to extend the family out. And Leanne, our violinist, and Elisa, our violinist, John's sisters, also, their kids all know all of our songs by heart. And, every year when we get together at Bradstock, we have them all up, and
that's nice.
we're up playing. We have our own little family orchestra at this point.
You're doing the Great South Bay Music Festival on that Sunday once again, and you're kind of, like we mentioned, part of the DNA of the festival over the years. How have you seen it changed? Because you've seen it from multiple different types of stages, and how have you seen the festival grow?
Oh, it's always been so fascinating to me. I mean, Jim does a great job. He's always done a great job since the beginning. But I remember when it was solely just one stage, maybe 2 stages. Then it evolved to 2 stages. It was always very remote to one specific area, and then as it built up and built up, you got that giant main stage and then the VIP sections. And I've seen a lot with that festival. I remember one of the first years was like Richie Havens played on the band shell, and I remember like getting to meet him. But like they just like set up a bunch of folding tables, and you could go and walk up and talk to him. And I just remember him being such a cool guy. Like he like shook your hand and like talked to you like he'd known you forever. It was really cool.
How it is very cool. How is the festival? I imagine it has helped Long Island's original music scene for sure over the years.
I mean, definitely. With bringing, I think that it definitely, like we were talking about the sauce and the spices. I think that the overall the festival itself, you bring in these bigger names, but I think that the local acts are what really kind of gives you that spice. You're getting introduced to things that you may have, bands that you may know, and it adds the extra incentive to get to that show because those bands already. But I think sometimes it also, if you don't know who they are, you might be taking a walk in between stages and something might catch your ear and you might be attracted to it, and you learn about new music just from that alone. But I think that the local bands really provide that, and I think it's a very important thing. It should never be overlooked. I think there's so much local talent on Long Island that needs to be in the spotlight. And you guys do a fantastic job of showcasing that, and I always appreciate that. It's just, but I think that the Great South Bay gives that opportunity to local bands to showcase, and to bring their A game, all the time, and to let people see that Long Island has a really fantastic music scene. So we're very fortunate that they give us a stage to be able to do that. Well,
have you? I know you've got some new music coming up. What's it like to debut new music at the festival? I'm curious.
Oh, it's always very stressful because we're so comfortable doing all of our regular songs, and then it's like, all right, here's a new song, and it's like, all right, guys, you ready?
well, that leads me to how do you create the set list for it? Because I know you guys do. I mean, you do shows. I know that schedules are different for you guys over the years. So, how many shows actually? How many shows a year does the band do? Out of curiosity,
we've been, I would say, at this point, we've kind of cut back a little bit as opposed to when we used to. Again, the landscape has changed a bit. Like there's a lot going on in our families. John and his sisters are teachers. We all have a lot going on in our lives. But we still like to get together and play music together and write music together. So at this point, I think we're probably playing maybe a little over a dozen shows a year.
And I think that's what makes this festival kind of special for you guys, because it's not as you guys are busy. It's nice to see you take the time to put this together for sure.
Absolutely. But like I said before, like we're always going to bring our A game. So it's like it's like, all right, what time are we on? All right, we should definitely go out swinging and pull out some hard-hitting songs, and then we get into the softer stuff. And then by midway, we were usually introducing some of the newer songs that we've been writing, which is always really cool. And that's a great new thing that we're starting to do again, and starting to introduce into the mixes some of the newer songs and newer stuff that we've been recording. So,
how long have you been working on the new stuff for?
A little over about a year and a half or so. Last August, we went to New Haven to record 3 new songs at a really cool place called Firehouse 12, which is Firehouse 12 is a converted firehouse that's converted into a recording studio. Wow. We were very fortunate to get to go and record there, and the room was just phenomenal, and just an incredible place. We recorded 3 new songs. The first song, which has already been released, is called Cool Hand. The next song, which is going to come out the Friday before Great South Bay, is called The Love You Take Away. And then the third and final song will be Whiskey and Wine, which will probably come out a little later in the fall.
Are there what themes are these songs kind of addressing? Because you guys have been in changes in your lives over the years. Was there a certain thing that kind of you realized that what you were writing about this time around?
I think that there's always been, I think with Miles to Dayton, a lot of times the music has always been what's going on in our life at the time. I've always noticed John's style of writing is always based around family and experiences that are happening. We definitely get a little political from time to time. On the song that we're releasing, "The Love You Take Away," is definitely got a little bit of a political twinge because it's what we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, it's the times we live in.
What we're seeing in our social environment right now, and how it affects us all. And I think that John is really got his finger on the pulse of that and how it's affecting him, his family, and our lives in general. So, and hey, come on, man, we're musicians. Every musician, if Bob Dylan wasn't writing political songs, like where would we be?
Exactly. This is fun. You've got 3 new songs. Is there going to be are you thinking about a record, or is this just to kind of get the balls rolling, the wheels moving again?
At the moment, we're looking at releasing an EP, and it's going to be called the Firehouse Sessions. We're starting with these 3. We're probably going to head back either in the fall or maybe just before the holidays to start recording the next batch. So we just want to get new music out. It's going in and recording an album for us is always, a process, and it takes a long time. So we figured, let's go and try and do, we'll do this piece by piece and release some new songs and get music out there. Things, the way that music is released today is so much different than it was when we started. I remember we would take upwards of a year, if not more, to release an album. And then, you get your CDs out, and then you have a CD release party and hope people buy the CDs. That was before you could stream all of this stuff, and it was readily available to you the next day. It's fascinating to me how the landscape's changed over time since we started playing music, to now. It's just this tremendous abundance of music at any time.
How has the Long Island music scene changed? Because you've been a part of this for decades now. How have you seen it grown or evolve? And I'm curious how COVID affected that too, because they kind of shut things down for a bit and then had to restart.
It's really interesting because from my perspective, I've been hosting open mic nights for over 20 years, and I've gotten to watch bands evolve. I've gotten to watch singer-songwriters come up, and it's always really cool. Even now, the scene is changing, but I feel like the Long Island scene has always been really great with welcoming in new music, and we all kind of work together and create music together, and there's such a great abundance of original music that's really starting to come around even now.
I'm curious, during your open mic sessions, who has impressed you over the years that are still doing it right now?
I play with a singer-songwriter, Sarah Gross. She came to my open mic night when she was still in high school.
Oh my gosh.
Which is crazy to me. And now she's looked down in Nashville. She just released an album. It's just always been, I met Cassandra House at a open mic night.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And that was many, many years ago at this point. I think I've been playing with her for 15 years. But, it's always been different open mic nights. There's always been, people that stand out. But the wheels keep turning.
What do you say? Because I know you've been down in Nashville doing different projects with Sarah and other things. What is it like for someone? What would you say to someone that's just kind of starting in the Long Island music scene? Because it does feel like if you've got some talent, you hear everyone going down to Nashville and doing different projects.
Sure.
What do you recommend? I'm curious.
I think that it's good to start here, but I think that you can't stay here. You got to move around. You have to kind of try and get your music out there. I think that it helps sometimes to leave for a little bit and then come back. It's great. It's great to build music in the scene that's here, but there are, and especially with the way that music is being released today, I remember years ago we played a show in Pennsylvania, and we just released our music on Pandora. And I remember that there was a group of people that came because they heard us on Pandora and looked us up and found out that we were playing this venue in Pennsylvania. And music is we're able to release music in such a way now where it's getting spread over all of these different in musical environments, and more people it's getting to more people, and I think that you have to bring your music to different places. Sometimes you'll play to maybe 10 people in a room, but you never know how it affects those 10 people. They might bring another 10 people in another state somewhere, and it just keeps building up. But I notice more musicians today from our music scene are branching out, and they're taking that chance, and they're going out there and they're trying to find places to play. We were, heavily involved in a lot of the folk scene and a lot of different festivals. And we would go and we would showcase our music, and then we would hope to get a handful of gigs in the tri-state area, sometimes down the East Coast if we were lucky. So I see more and more people, a lot of original songwriters are writing songs and just trying to get on the road as fast as they can with the music that they're writing.
That's interesting. With the band and on your own stuff too, what are your goals for music right now? Because there are so many, it feels like there's so many options to release on different platforms, etc. What are you looking to do as far as your own stuff, but also with the band?
I love playing music. I love our band. I love our music. If it gets where it gets, I think we're grateful that people are listening. It's always about getting music out to people. Am I looking for the big rock star life? I don't think so much anymore as when I was a kid. I think you get to a point in your life where you're making music for yourself. Mm-hmm. You're making music to be, for people that love what you do. It's still, it still can affect your soul when you're standing on stage and people are singing your songs back to you. It's a very special feeling. But I love supporting the music that we create. I love the music that we create. I love the evolution that we've been through. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the people that listen to it. But I also really love, kind of trying to help bring to fruition a lot of the newer artists as well. So when I get the opportunity to try and help out other artists and help move them forward, I have the time to be able to, help out artists and play with different original artists, which really makes me happy. Are you
doing any open mics coming up? Is there a regular schedule that you can?
So I host the People's Open Mic Night at People's Pub in Bayport. The second Wednesday of every month. And
what's the website for that? Is it peoplespubbayport.com, I think?
That is it.
And that'll get everything and all the information you need for that. And you never know who you're going to see performing. And that's really great that you do it. And you give back to the community. And the music community. So thank you for doing that. That's very cool. Tell me a little bit about, all right, I got a little bit of trouble. I haven't seen this, but I did read that maybe I'm not supposed to speak about Brad Stock on the air. and I wanted to, and I've always wondered, because and I'm running around with radio and stuff, you're doing different things, and all I want to do is support musicians and get the word out. But I did hear a rumor. I actually never saw it for myself, but I did hear a rumor that apparently I'm not, is this kind of like Fight Club that I learned?
I don't know so much that it's a Fight Club. But
you're not supposed to say anything about it. So you do not speak about Brad Stock.
It's definitely it's a secret society.
All right, and I apologize. I just want to. I don't want to offend the secret society of Bradstock. I had the best intentions, and I still will, and I'll probably still mention it when it comes down to the end of the summer.
You can absolutely talk about Bradstock, because if we didn't talk about Bradstock, we couldn't talk about what a great thing it is for what it does, and that is, it helps fund Camp Pawcatuck in Santa Mauritius. It's been around. This is going to be its 33rd year, and it's a 2-day concert, and all the proceeds go to benefit Island Harvest as well as Camp Pawcatuck, which is a camp for handicapped children. Over the last few years, we've raised, I think last year we raised either $30,000 or $40,000 for the camp.
That's amazing, and that actually is what drew me to want to support it, because of certain people in my life who have special needs, and I thought that was the coolest thing. And I really say thank you to that camp and everyone that raised money for it, because it really is important. So thank you for doing that. That's very cool.
Absolutely. I'm really proud to be a part of it. It's not something that, it's always kind of a word of mouth type of thing.
That's the thing. And I think that's part of it too. It's kind of a grassroots thing. So I get that.
It's never like you can't go, you're not allowed to go, but like when it's word of mouth, people are like, oh, what is that? That sounds kind of cool. But
no, that makes sense. I'm halfway joking with the thing, but I was surprised a little bit by the reaction to talking about it. And I guess it's just kind of funny. So I'm happy that it's raising a lot of money for a terrific cause, a couple causes, and I'm sure.
I think on a local scale, people are. It's a little less hush hush. On a local scale, it's like okay, like when big name magazines are like contacting the Bradstock people and are like, hey, we want to publish a whole piece on Bradstock. They're like, you can't. We're sorry.
That's a very interesting. I actually would love to talk to the people that the history of Bradstock is interesting too. The whole way it's evolved over the years. So maybe down the road we could do that, but maybe not too much attention. I don't know. We'll
I would
see.
be happy to rile them up for you.
That would be very cool. Dave, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Miles to Dayton, Sunday, 6:30, Jambalaya Stage, the Great South Bay Music Festival, and new music streaming on all the platforms. There's a song out there now and more coming soon, so check it out. Search for Miles to Dayton. It'll all be up there. And continued success with everything going down in Nashville and wherever you're at, and we'll see you in the future. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you so much, Harry. And thanks for all the support you give local music. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.